like and subscribe. Now, doctors and nurses have read it. Have you ever witnessed a couple have a child that was obviously not the father's? If so, what happened? I worked labor and delivery, had a very young mother come in, accompanied by her parents. She was just 12 to 13 and parents looked stuffy and kept telling her she'd had an abortion. She was too young, etc. Her mother was silent the whole time, but leaked tears for her constantly. While she labored, I received a call from a very young boy who said he was her boyfriend. His trembly voice explained that her father wouldn't come to the hospital. I explained that I couldn't give out information, but he could talk to her afterward. I went in, told her he had called, and she showed me a picture of him. He was white, straight red hair, pimply and tiny, the runt of the litter. About an hour later, her phys ed teacher stopped by to check on her, which I thought was odd. We didn't get many teachers checking on students. He was as opposite of the boyfriend as he could get. Tall, very muscular, beautiful smile, and rich, chocolate brown skin. The girl's father accompanied her to the delivery room. Odd, but okay. The more she pushed, the louder she cried. In between, she kept saying sorry daddy. Finally, out slid a very beautiful, chocolate brown baby boy. I thought her father was going to pass the F out on my delivery room floor. I did my usual "it's a boy" and said nothing else. I handed him off to a nursery nurse and got dad a chair. The new mom said "I'm sorry daddy" over and over again. Her mom, now frowned up, came to see the baby, took one look, started asking God for forgiveness, and left. I sent her dad home a short bit later, admonishing him to react at home, not here. I set up a time for our counselor to meet with him before I left. After talking to new mom, she admitted her gym teacher had been giving her special treatment. I explained sex to her, and she said she'd only kissed the BFF, but had stayed after school to be with her gym teacher. I'm state mandated to report child abuse, so I did. 2 weeks later, with her world shattered, her baby was given up for adoption. I wish her the best. Of note, this was 1989. My husband and I were visiting our friends who just had a baby. We are the godparents, and we were standing in the hallway talking to both sets of grandparents. Well, apparently the hospital has a rule that only 5 visitors may be present in the hallway, but the security guard had let all 6 of us in for some reason and we didn't realize it. This nasty nurse comes up to us, notes that there are 6 of us, tells us someone will have to leave immediately, and then turns to my husband and says, "Oh, are you the daddy?" Without missing a beat, he says, "That's what we are all trying to figure out here." She gets a look of horror on her face and backs away. Worked in the army hospital on Fort Lewis. A woman came in for belly pain, and we found out and told her she was 10 weeks pregnant. The husband at the bedside started laughing, grabbed his coat, and left the room explaining to us that he had been in Afghanistan until 3 weeks prior. He looked back at her and just said, "Well, that's that, Brittany." I always liked how classily he left her, while she just silently stared off into space. I had a vasectomy. While chatting with the doctor, he told me about another patient. This guy had 3 kids and came in for the snip because he and his wife decided they were done having children. The doc opened up his sack and found nothing to snip. This guy was born without the ability to have any children. The poor doctor had to explain to him what happened. Imagine finding that out that way. This is hardcore. Yipes. And I thought my stepmother having to tell my father she was pregnant after his first vasectomy was bad. 23andMe posts a 25% off coupon 2 hours after this post goes up. One of my favorite cousins just did 23andMe with her dad and discovered that they were not biologically related at all. This is especially horrible because my aunt, her mother, is one of the most ridiculously zealous and judgmental people I have ever met. She screams at the baby cousins when they don't behave perfectly. She literally threw a pocket Bible at a woman in a grocery store after the woman was on the phone and said "sure something." And she likes to send me unsolicited long letters about God's plan for my life. Surprisingly, her husband is the most fun and laid back person I've ever met. He did not deserve this, or her. I learned about it a paternal superfecundation from a friend of mine. She is a 5'0" blonde white girl introducing me to her 6'5" black twin. Surprises for everyone that day. Not in the hospital, but a friend and his GF were on again/off again. and she got pregnant. She swears it's his. He wants a paternity test. He moves in with her and her mom. She has the baby. Take the test. Test is taking a while to come back. Him and his family are over the moon with the baby. Kinda forget about it. Mentions it to GF's mom one day and she says, oh yeah, she didn't tell you. Came back a while ago. Totally your baby. Awesome. All is well. A few months later they're moving out and he finds the test in a box. Not his baby. Eater he left. Tried to stay in the baby's life, but she wouldn't let him. He finds the test in a box. Why would you keep the damn test? Oh man. I'm so late to this thread. I used to work in the newborn nursery at a hospital. We got the babies right from delivery, cleaned them up, footprinted them, checked vitals, etc. Dads usually came in with the newborns. This dad comes in with this baby. Dad is white. Mom is white. Baby is very obviously not white. The dad was very quiet standing next to this baby, watching us clean it up. He says quietly, I don't think this is my baby. You could tell he was absolutely devastated. We advised him not to sign the birth certificate until he was sure. Not sure what happened after we sent the baby back out to mom. But I felt awful for the guy. I can feel his sadness through the text. Right. Like he just muttered it to himself accidentally loud enough to be heard. Hopefully he didn't sign the birth certificate. Poor dad, expecting to raise a child, just to find out his wife had cheated, and the child isn't even his. My best friend was dating a girl, and knocked her up. They got engaged, and planned to get married right after the baby was born. There were about 10 of us in the waiting room waiting for her to crank out the baby. It was essentially her parents. His were in another state, some of her friends, and some of ours. After sitting there for about 2 hours, he walks out with a smirk on his face and says let's go. We all thought something horrible had happened. Her friends ask how the baby is, and he said fine, but black. He motioned for us to go, so we followed him. In the parking garage, he tells us to follow him to his apartment, then sends me a text asking I could put him up for a while. We literally moved him out of his apartment and into my spare bedroom in like an hour tops. Her parents didn't know who to be mad at. The confusion on their faces when he told them the baby was black was priceless. Wow. Till it's not only in American TV shows where all the friends wait at the hospital for the baby to be delivered. I didn't realize that it happened in real life. I was in the waiting room when my best friend's son was born. It was just me waiting. None of their other friends or family showed up. I felt kind of dumb with the balloons and whatnot, but I like to be around for the people I care for. Maybe I thought I was supposed to be there because of the sitcoms. I was blood typing a newborn once. Mom was an O+, baby was AB+, which is more or less not possible. I immediately panicked because Jesus God, they mixed up the babies. Someone has the wrong baby. We are gonna get sued. They're gonna have to genetic test the entire nursery. What if they subpoena me for being the idiot who discovered the problem? I don't have insurance. What if they sue me? After repeating the test 3 times I called the floor and told them that they'd either drawn the wrong baby's blood or they'd switched babies because mom couldn't be the baby's mother. Lol no. It was a donor egg. The red row matched fine. Everyone was where they were supposed to be. Oh god my heart. Though, you'd think they might mention something important like that. I work in anesthesia. One of my colleagues had someone vaginally deliver a baby with Steve's lunchbox tattooed above the birth canal. The ob/gyn said to the father after the delivery, "Congratulations Steve." The guy replied that his name was indeed not Steve. Don't know if that counts. Due in 5 days. Never have cheated on my soap but now I'm terrified. Thanks Reddit. My wife is an RN/hospital supervisor. Code yellow is the code over the intercom for security/large male nurses needed. It rarely ever happens, but every now and then over the speakers you hear a code yellow. Labor and delivery. You know the reason from reading other subs. I'd guess sometimes it's also family, grandmas to be, who won't leave the delivery room or labor ward. When my sister had a baby my mother jumped in the way of the guys transferring the baby to NICU and wouldn't let them move. She demanded to see the doctors, the nurses, my sister, the admin staff. My plan was to lie to both sides of the family about my due date and be home with the baby before they knew. I used to work with a guy whose wife was pregnant. Near time for delivery everyone at our place of business had a big party with gifts, money, etc. So big day comes, water breaks, they get in car to go to hospital. She breaks the news on the way there it's not his, the kid is another race, and if he could just drop her off at the hospital and then leave, that would be great. He took a few days off work, found a new apartment, moved out, filed divorce etc. He called into work and told someone what happened. News spread pretty fast, all congratulations cards, etc were cleaned up and thrown away. Everyone was very sensitive to his pain. Except, somehow, I don't know how, I did not get the news. So on his first day back, I walked into the office he shared with 6 to 7 other guys, and said hey daddy-o, how's fatherhood so far? Getting any sleep? Got some pictures? Let's see the little tyke. He slowly lifted his head to look at me with a painful look. The room was dead silent. One of his workmates stood up, grabbed my arm, and walked me out of the room, shushing me. What happened? I asked. Did it die? What's the problem? When he told me I about died myself, I still feel bad for the dude and it's been 30 years. Hey daddy ol mayo. Nice one. Hey daddy-o, rev up those fryers. I worked with this guy a few years back. Him and his wife were pregnant. They were super excited and shared the news with everyone and put stuff all over social media. So fast forward a few months and the kid is unfortunately stillborn. They had a professional photographer come to the hospital and they did a series of photos, holding the baby, dressing it up, kissing it on the head. You know, usual newborn photos. The bizarre thing is they put them all on Facebook. I found it kind of morbid, but whatever. I've never lost a kid so that's cool. One day at work a guy from a different branch comes into the store and congratulates my coworker, slaps him on the back, and says all this stereotypical new dad small talk BS. My coworker informs him the baby was born dead. The other guy refuses to believe it and keeps saying F you man. Quit messing with me. I saw the pictures on Facebook, they go back and forth. And the guy finally realizes he's not being messed with. This was the most uncomfortable exchange I have ever seen between two humans. I laughed out loud because it's my mechanism when I'm uncomfortable. I'm not a nurse. My professor was an L&D nurse and she once saw a man running between 2 delivery rooms. Both women he had impregnated went into labor and gave birth the same day. Supposedly the one he was married to was angry because the woman he cheated with was impregnated after the wife, but had her kid 10 minutes before the wife. L&D is apparently the most drama-filled section of hospitals. My so is planning to be a nurse and he's going to work in L&D/neonatal this year, and I'm excited to hear any dramatic stories. This happened when we went in to wait for my sister to give birth. Both families were there, and it was super awkward. Fortunately he was not even dating either girl that was in there having his baby. My cousin had a child to a man who impregnated another woman at the same time. They gave birth about 24h apart. He's classy. Added bonus. 2 of his other baby mamas are sisters. Neat. Added extra bonus. He tried to sleep with me on my 21st birthday. It was difficult to refrain, but I managed. My grandmother was a nurse. Once she was assisting with delivering a baby and the ostensible father commented that the child looked good for a premature baby. Without thinking, my grandmother told the truth. That baby is not premature. So I guess I know where I get my social obliviousness from. I don't think that's social obliviousness. Like, there's no obligation to sit there and consider how someone could possibly be lying, so you could cover it up for them. If they're dumb lies about something that easily blown open, they deserve to get it blown open. Reminds me of that joke. Interviewer, what would you say is your biggest flaw? Candidate, my biggest flaw is probably that I'm too honest. Interviewer, oh, that doesn't sound like much of a flaw at all. Candidate, well I don't give a F what you think. A coworker's aunt just found out her dad wasn't actually her dad. So she was really big into genealogy and had mapped out her family tree as far as she could go. She took one of those ancestry DNA tests about 2 months ago, and her father's side didn't line up with what she was expecting. In fact, she didn't recognize a single name that she was matched with paternally. She casually asked her dad if he knew any of the names, and he recognized the surname of the maintenance man at the apartment complex where he and his wife, Aunt's mom, lived shortly after they had gotten married. Claimed he was a lousy repairman who always flirted with his wife, etc. Aunt's mom had passed away a few years ago, so she decided to not tell her dad the news. Had a lesbian couple come in. One of them was pregnant, neither knew. Judging from all the screaming, this information was poorly received. Sounds about like my life. Found out in our first divorce hearing that she was pregnant. The judge wouldn't grant the divorce since her child was conceived during our marriage. Judge even went as far as making me wait 9 months till the baby was born and take a DNA test to prove the child wasn't mine. Even though I'm a woman, I really hate to laugh at that, but the last part killed me. I'm sorry you had to go through that. My brother was doing his obgyn rotation. His story is that in the first birth he assisted the woman, had her husband leave the room. Seems odd these days, but he had the husband step out for the comfort of the patient. The baby is delivered, and the color was not even close. Lily white parents and very black baby. She wants him to stay to talk to her husband who is about to come back, and he bails on the whole situation. She was playing the odds all the way to the end. Had a college buddy whose fiancée was pregnant. They were the perfect couple. Both had just over a year with great careers starting out. Everything was butterflies and rainbows. Fast forward to the delivery room. There in there and out comes a very black baby. He's quite the pale redhead, and she's a blonde/blue eyes Texas girl. He made sure everyone was okay, waited for her parents to arrive, and left without saying a word. He moved all his stuff out of the house while she was in the hospital and cut off all communications with her. Just walked out of their lives in the most stone cold act I'd ever seen. They were together for 9 years, and he just left cold turkey. She tried to contact him at his job a few times, but he quickly moved up the ladder and eventually got a job in another city. He told me once that he took solace in the fact that her family had already dropped about $10K in a wedding. That never happened. Edited typo. He's a gentle waiting for her parents. Yeah, I'll admit I don't see myself being able to wait. That said, I can't even imagine being in that situation. Real class, and I'm sure someone with that fortitude will land on their feet. He did the right thing. There is absolutely nothing you can say to a person that cheated on you after 9 effing years and didn't say anything about it. Honestly, I don't think I would even wait for her parents. Oh, I would definitely want to see the look on the new grandparents' faces so they could see the look in my eye as I walked out the door. He should also take solace in not paying child support for her kid. My son came out and looked really tan. My ex-girlfriend and I are pretty white. I thought for a second she cheated on me. We are now separated for different reasons unrelated to our child, and he is pasty white as hell. Got one heck of a suntan in the uterus though. It's funny how some kids can get some random gene that neither parent shows. My oldest son is ridiculously dark. The whole family is blindingly white. 3 other siblings, but he looks Hispanic almost in skin color. Paternity has been established on him. No questions there. He's just our bronzed little man who is allowed to see sunlight without 3 feet of sunblock on, since he doesn't sizzle up the second the sun hits him. The little show off. Pele Irish guy here. Well, Irish descent anyway. My son got my wife's skin coloring, which comes from her grandmother. He looks exactly like me, except when he goes in the sun he turns brown instead of pink. I'm so jealous. Not a doctor, but a distant cousin of mine definitely has children that don't belong to the father. My cousin was adopted as an infant and was essentially a crack baby. She struggled with some developmental issues and has a low IQ compared to most, but can still live on her own with little to no issues. She, a white woman, married a Latino guy, really dark brown skin, several years ago, and they had a son together who has dark hair, dark skin, and dark eyes. He is easily identified as their son. The real trouble happens years later. Her husband, who we'll call Javier, has some IQ issues of his own. Just a little slow when it comes to tasks and reasoning. Anyway, Javier is in the military and gets deployed internationally for about 6 months. When he comes home, his wife is 4 months pregnant. You do the math. He still believes the baby is his own, even after it's born with pale skin and blonde hair, blue eyes. If that wasn't bad enough, it happens again 2 years later with another baby. Same blonde hair and blue eyes. Everyone knows she slept with a different man. It was actually her high school boyfriend, but Javier still thinks the children are his. It's kind of sad, but at this point there's not much you can do. He has raised the kids as his own. Javier is a good man. Your cousin certainly isn't a good woman. Javier, I hate to break this to you, but these kids, you aren't the father. Yeah, I know, man. Wait, You know. Why do you constantly insist they are your kids? Dude, they are. I'm a nurse but this didn't happen to me. Friend of mine got pregnant in high school. She claimed it was our local doctor's son's kid, so he agreed to deliver his grandchild for free. Child delivered and it was obviously half African American. Doctor's son and girl were both white. I think he still delivered it for free as he was relieved his 14-year-old son wasn't a dad. LPT to avoid paying a 10k plus bill at the hospital. My sister got pregnant in high school and later met her now husband when she was 5 months pregnant. She is white and boyfriend is black. The baby daddy was white and not present. I was with our entire family, including my now brother-in-law, visiting the baby. My sister was still in recovery from her C-section. Brother-in-law picks up my niece. The nurse looks at him and says she should docken up in a few days. We all had a laugh. We knew he wasn't the father, but she didn't. I always wondered if she felt bad, assumed adultery. They have 2 more girls together and he was able to adopt a 3 years later. I worked as a lab tech before I became a nurse. We had a set of twins in the NICU that were super early and the mom was still in the or getting sewed up from the cesarean. I was drawing baby B's blood when mom was wheeled over to baby A's isolate. She was crying and said, "Oh, thank God you're not black. I have been so worried the last 7 months." So newborn babies, especially when they're born early, are very pink, almost red. So even if a baby was part black, their skin isn't necessarily dark yet. But looking at these babies, it was obvious they were going to be black. The shape of the face, the texture of the hair, and baby B that I was working on had an intense Mongolian spot. A few weeks later, my NICU nurse friend told me that the babies were now on a no info status, meaning security alert. Can't give anyone information about them, can't refer to them by name, etc. She said there was a huge fight because the mom's husband, white guy, obviously noticed that the babies were half black and that mom had cheated on him and got pregnant. The real dad, black guy, came in and didn't realize the mom was even married. Those poor babies. I was surprised at how red my 33-weeker was. One of the NICU nurses gave me a mean look when I told my husband that she looked like a old man alien, but she totally did. Why would she give you a mean look? It's your baby. Poor guys too. Imagine finding out your wife has cheated that way, or that the girl you've been seeing is married. The 2 guys should adopt said baby together and start a sitcom. Random note from the side of academia. This is why they don't do blood tests compared to your parents in my college, Marshall University, to teach basic genetics. Too many were finding out they didn't have any chance of being their father's child. I only heard the horror stories secondhand, but the results spoke for themselves. They used to do this in our grade 7 science class. One bad case ruined it for the whole school. A kid at my school found out he/she was adopted halfway. I was a grade behind them, so we were the first year to not be able to do the testing. My parents have been married for 35 years and had 4 kids, but I definitely texted my mom before I ordered 23andMe kits for my 3 siblings as Christmas gifts. Like, I'm not going to ask questions, but if you don't think it's a good idea, just say the word. I got my parents 23andMe kits too, and it turns out everyone's related exactly like we thought we were. Phew. I took the 23andMe spit kit test. Great product. I loved it so much that I bought a kit for each of my parents for their birthdays over the course of the following year. Mom did hers right away. She had the results in 8 weeks after I bought it. Their algorithm didn't waste any time either. Got a notification of a likely found parent. 51% matched. Again. Very cool product. Dad waited and waited. Promised he would get to it. Told me he lost the kit. 23andMe replaced the kit. Dad waited some more. Finally, about a year after I first bought his kit, I knew that 23andMe has an expiration for them, so I called Dad to just get it taken care of already. We, several siblings, were all kind of wondering if maybe there was a reason he wasn't taking the test. I actually began to question my relationship with my dad for the first time. Why did mom take the test so willingly and he was stalling for so long? Was there a secret he was keeping from us all? Nope, he's just lazy. Took the test over the phone. I walked him through registration and had it mailed in that afternoon. 49% matched to my dad. But yeah, for a little bit there, I really did wonder